I'm Tim Garland. This is the Trail Connection Podcast. Exploring, learning, and connecting through a love for the outdoors. Talking everything from hiking, camping, and just plain living. This is the Trail Connection Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Trail Connection Podcast. My name is Tim Garland, aka Mitty. I'm your host, and this week we are kicking off our brand new season 2021, kicking it off right. I wanted to bring my friend Peter Murphy and his oldest boy Ethan on the show this week and talk a little bit about their AT section hike that they took together, first time ever been. I thought that'd be a really cool way to kick off the year and kick off the new series. So let's hear what they got to say. Hey Peter, hey Ethan, welcome to the Trail Connection. I'm excited to have you guys join the show this week. You're the first guest that I've brought on the show for 2021, and we're kicking off the second season. I'm calling it a season. It's not official. It's just a series of episodes, but I'll call this season 2. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. We feel honored to be the first guest of 2021.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, the reason why I wanted to bring you guys on the show was because, Peter, you were telling me about a little section hike that you guys did last year on the Appalachian Trail together, and told me a little bit about the highlights, and I thought it was really cool that father-son went on this trip together. And from what I understand, this is the first time both of you guys have been on the trail before?
Yep.
Yeah, it sure was. It was brand new for us. Ethan turned 13 in July of last year. And so we were looking for something that we could do together that would be significant, kind of a rite of passage kind of thing, to signify that big milestone in a young man's life. And Ethan is an outdoorsman, loves to do that kind of stuff. I like to do it too. And so we decided to give it a shot together, figure it all out, father and son, and learn from each other and from a bunch of people who had done it before, and ended up working out real well.
That's great. That's really cool. So, Peter, why don't you tell my audience a little bit about yourself, what you do, and where you're from?
Yeah, for sure. So I live in Lutz, Florida. It's a little suburb north of Tampa, and I've been here for like 20 years or so. I have a wife and 3 children. Ethan's my oldest. I have been in the real estate industry for the better part of 15 years and have loved that. I sold my real estate company about 4 years ago, and that freed up my time a little bit to spend some more time with my kids and family and really kind of take a schedule in some unique ways. And so now I feel really blessed to have done that. I know my circumstances is unique in some ways. Not everyone gets to do that, but some of that freedom has really allowed us to be able to do some great stuff with the family and the kids, and things like what Ethan and I did together are things that I look at now, having done it, and feel like that is what makes life special. I've
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. I've been rebuilding some companies over the last few years, and continuing enjoying life, raising my kids down here with Lauren, my wife. But other than that, pretty ordinary life. We try to get outdoors as much as we can, enjoy what God has given us out there, and definitely enjoying every advanced year as my kids get older, because they get more and more capable of doing fun things with me. So lots of fun there.
Yeah, very cool. Ethan, what are some of the things that you like to do for fun, buddy?
I like to do a lot of things. I love to read. I love to do things that are like puzzles and stuff like that. And like my dad said, I love the outdoors. I love fishing, hiking, camping, all those things. I love a lot of very active things.
My kind of guy. It's all stuff I like to do too. So I wanted to kind of kick this thing off right at the very beginning. What made you decide the Appalachian Trail?
So, like my dad said, I was turning 13, and we wanted to do something that was kind of significant because, like, 13 is kind of the going from like kid to teenager. It's just like a significant thing in your life. So, we had talked about doing the Appalachian Trail earlier, and we decided that'd be something cool to do because we both love the outdoors, and it was a really great experience. We both thought that'd be awesome, and it was.
Yeah. It
That's
was
really
also going to
cool.
be a really big challenge for us. I mean, neither of us had done anything quite like that. Earlier in the year, we had both gotten scuba certified together. So that was kind of a neat challenge too. It was something I had never done, always wanted to do. But the Appalachian Trail presented some unique challenges. I had just come off of some marathon training. And so I was looking at some endurance sports and things that would be helpful to like kind of build an endurance, deepen my endurance acumen. And Ethan likes to do some distance running too. So this was kind of a neat cobbling together of the distance mindset with the
Hmm.
outdoorsman mindset and just some survival skills, which we felt like we needed to figure out how to do. Didn't come from a big camping
Yeah.
family, so feel like I want to kind of learn how to do that myself. So Appalachian
Yeah.
Trail check some boxes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What section did you guys do?
We did from Emma Falls to Woody Gap. I don't know exactly where that is. I know it's in Georgia, but I don't know exactly
Hmm.
where it is. My dad knows more of like the map stuff.
Yeah. Woody Gap was as far north as we got, and we wanted to go further. We were hoping to get up to Hogpen Gap, but man,
Hmm.
it trail kicked our tail in terms of, we thought we were going to get out there and do 12 to 15 miles a day. We're total novices, right? And, just totally underestimated how heavy the gear would take just to hike a mile. And, didn't get nearly as far as we thought we would. So went that first 30 or so mile segment and then
Hmm.
had to come off earlier than we thought we would. But it was a blast.
Yeah. Did you guys do the approach trail from Amalakoa up to Springer?
We did.
Is that how you got started? That's no joke, man. That trail is no joke.
Those approach trails are a lot harder than the actual trail. I was surprised to see how hard those were.
Yeah, you were
Yeah.
like more than
Typically.
surprised. It was like exhausting and like emotionally
Yeah.
draining because you're like just starting out and you're like on this emotional high. You think, hey, this is going to be great and exhilarating and I can totally handle this. And then you get like 600 steps is the first thing you encounter, 604 steps up the falls. And you get to the top of that and you're like totally winded. And like, wow, what did I get myself into? And
Probably not the best way to start like an 8 mile hike, but it was still good.
Yeah. Yeah. That was when I did that section. That was actually the second time that I went on the trail. The first time that I went, me and John Krim went up to North Carolina, and we started at Fontana Dam and hiked south to Natahela Outdoor Center, and I had the exact same feeling on just the approach trail from the gap leading up to the trail. I think I got like maybe 300 or 400 yards in, and I was just like, "What did I just do?" Because I, like you guys, I did not prepare. Like I had no idea what I was getting into, and so it was just it's a unique experience for the individual, but it's like one of those common experiences that most new hikers all experience. We just underestimate and kind of get in that situation where we bit off a little bit more than we could chew. But I think you guys are probably both in a lot better shape than I was and am. So you probably got over that pretty quickly.
we didn't. I have to say, I mean, like I have some endurance acumen, like for running, and I thought that would be a really great thing to bring on the trail, and maybe it was, But Ethan doesn't run marathons yet, and he was able to kind of keep up, and I felt like I was as spent as he was at certain points on the trail. So now that kind of made me
Mm-hmm.
think, I'm not sure what exactly the preparation would be to really make you feel like dominant when you first set out on the trail. I don't know if you're going to feel that way. I think it's maybe so challenging and difficult, and the whole dynamic of carrying the backpack and the weight of that is just is so different than what you're used to doing. That
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was exhausting, and we had two guys with us. They were exhausted too. I mean, Ethan, can I tell him? Can I tell him about how you and Alex, couple? Why don't you tell him? A couple hours trip. I mean,
So from
maybe you
where
don't want to tell him.
Sassafras, is that where we're starting?
Oh, not even a sassafras, but like hour two into the trip. Like we hadn't even gotten remotely close to Springer Mountain yet. And like the kids, we're getting emotional. Let me put it that way.
It was very emotionally draining. Like I didn't even understand how important breaking your shoes in was. My feet were
Oh
hurting
yeah.
so bad. I had like bruises on the bottom of my feet because I hadn't broken in my shoes. And I put my pack on
Mm.
wrong. So I have a scar on my shoulder from a blister. And so
Oh man.
we were just like, we would take a break and we would both like fall down just from like, it was hard. We were both starting to get like, we were very emotionally drained. It was hard, but it was great. It was really cool.
Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
a
You're
matching shoulder blister too. It's like our bags are way too heavy. We just weren't wearing them quite right because it takes a little bit
Mhm.
of know how to adjust them correctly. And so day two into it, and you're going, and the weight of that backpack's bearing down on your blisters, and you're like, that feels horrible. Nothing you can do
Yeah.
about
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All familiar feelings. I had the same thing. That the first pack that I took was kind of an entry level pack, and I wasn't wearing it properly. I had way, way, way too much stuff packed in it, and so it was killing my shoulders and my shoulder blades and my upper body, and couldn't get it cinched around my waist just right. So it was just very uncomfortable, and it can make it pretty miserable, like when you're trying to explore this new area and get this new experience. You want to have the best experiences you can, and it's hard to do that when you're in pain. But if you go back, that really is a testament to your love for the outdoors and your openness to checking stuff out like that. So
And
that's cool.
once we got like our packs put on right and adjusted so that they were comfortable, it was a lot better. And it made everything so much more enjoyable. Like you could look around
Yeah.
and like, okay, how many miles till our shelter so I can take this off and try to rub some feeling back into my feet. You could like look around and enjoy like the Lord of the Rings type scenes and all of that.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into another question I had for you, Ethan. What was your first impression of the Appalachian Trail? Like, what'd you think about when you're out there in the woods?
Thought about a lot of things. So like starting off, I was like, this is so cool. I'm hiking like up a mountain, 600 stairs. It was a lot, but it was very cool. I was thinking about like all the animals. Now, I am not I'm not like scared of them, but I do not like spiders. And there were like daddy long legs everywhere. And so that was like I was just walking down the trail and I'd always have kind of an eye on the ground so I didn't step on any like particularly large daddy long legs just because I do not like spiders. It was so cool just like looking around seeing like the wildlife, like the birds, the trees. We found a cat on the trail that was at one of our campsites. All of
Hmm.
those different experiences were so cool.
Sweet. What about you, Peter? What was your first impression of the trail?
Yeah, so yeah, we passed some kind of viper at the foot of the, once we had reached the top of the stairs. And so it was neat to kind of like just be, falling up the final stairs. And then there was a big snake sitting under one of the rails as we kind of went up onto the approach trail. So it was neat to kind of see that. I was actually surprised at how little wildlife we saw initially. It was mostly birds. And, we didn't actually run into any bears, although one of the people we passed on the trail said she fought off a bear from her stuff that morning. So we know there were plenty of bears, saw lots of evidence of them, but we didn't actually see a ton of them. I felt like the trail was very grueling until almost day 3, where those beautiful vistas really opened up for us. So,
Hmm.
going on a very short segment hike, I thought I would right away see great beauty and be awe-inspired. And instead, I felt like I was walking in very confined spaces and very closed in initially. There was like a test up front that was like, once you break through this part of the test, then the true beauty of the AT will open up to you. But you've got to pay your dues before you can see that. And your dues is like
Oh yeah.
hiking. That's kind of what it felt like to me, because it wasn't as beautiful as a lot of things I've seen out west and other places we've gone. We've seen just remarkable vistas. It took us days before we saw some of those. But so when we did see them, we were like, this is truly inspiring now. But it took a while to get there for me.
Probably once
Yeah.
we
Yeah. Make you earn it.
It did, totally.
Yeah, and wonderfully said. I mean, that was kind of my impression too. Like I expected to see a lot more waterfalls, to see a lot more, open mountain vistas or just overlooks, and there's just, if you plan it right, then yeah, section height will offer that to you. But most times, if you start in those popular starting points like Springer and the sections up north, around Katahdin, those are very high traffic areas, so you'll see a lot less wildlife, and you kind of have to earn those wonderful views that you're talking about. And I love just the dynamic of the trail. I love how it changes so much. You have certain sections that are kind of open and real woody, like foliage and leaves and stuff like that, and you have others that's real rocky, some that's super steep, some that's kind of gradual. And then you get up top where it's pretty brushy, and you have little tiny corridors that you're hiking through. So it's definitely something that you need to just brace yourself for a lot of change, and so I think that's cool.
Well, I think it's so right. On day 3 for us, after we left, man, I can't remember. I'm blanking on the name of it. Ethan, maybe you can remember where we camped on day 2, where we were in that clearing.
Hawk.
Yeah, at Hawk, right? So we left Hawk, and we had this really heavy hike over Sassafras. It was a real steep up and down. And at the bottom of Sassafras, we grabbed lunch. And then once we left that point, I felt like the trail became like mythically beautiful. Like we would walk through birch clearings and like stands of birch trees, where you had this really beautiful, like almost carpet of brown when you're walking across. And then you walk through what almost looked like magnolias, and it was like thick magnolia trees everywhere. And then you walk through this river part on your way up to, on your way up to Gooch. And this river part looked like this like fairy clearing, like what you read about like Lord of the Rings, like Ethan was saying earlier, where like the trees open up in this hazy beauty and the sun is shining through. And you go through what feels like 3 or 4 different, like horticultural zones on this one small section of hike. And that's where it becomes like absolutely rewarding when you see that. But highly diverse in that way.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's really nothing like that down here in Florida. I talked a lot on this podcast about the area down here and the things that I do down here for fun, outdoors, these type stuff. And Florida offers its unique change in dynamic, atmosphere when it comes to the different types of foliage and different types of areas down here. But it's like not anything like what you experience up there. It's like, and I'm sure, I've never been like real out west, but I'm sure that it's a lot more that way out there than it is in North Carolina and up through those, the Blue Ridge Mountains. But still, just something on the East Coast that's quick that you can get to, within a 7 or 8 hour drive. They offer some really rewarding experiences up there. So it's definitely worth it.
Without a doubt. And, of course, we talked a lot about the nature, of course, but the significance of this trail. I've done a lot of reading of ultramarathon runners who have run this trail. I've read a lot of Kerouac, and he has this close relationship with the Appalachian Trail. And I was born in Maine and I've lived in the Northeast. So this has always been something that's had this mythical, this real historic significance to it. And so walking the trail, in one sense, you're like, you have the nature element. In another sense, you have this, I am a part of something that's so much bigger than myself. And not just because it's the world and a mountain and you're this tiny human, but because of all that's gone into this and all the history and everything, that's all the people and the diverse stories that have traveled this. And now I make my own little mark on it. And that's special and significant. And it only comes alive when you're really on it in a way that you can never really appreciate just reading about it in books.
Yeah, for sure. So what kind of camping did you guys do when you were there? Did you stay in the shelters, or did you use a hammock or tent?
So we hammock camped for most. We had a shelter for one night on our first night, and it was not exactly comfortable. It was hard ground, and it was not easy to like. It's not easy to go to sleep when you're sleeping on like a wood floor elevated a couple feet off the ground in like a sleeping bag that's designed to be light. It's not supposed to be comfortable. But
Yeah.
so that was the first night. But when it was hammock camping was so much better. It was amazing. It was it was so easy to go to sleep, and yes, that's how we camped for the first 2 nights. We'd set up camp, cook our meals, and then go to sleep in those. And we had these bug nets. Now around like there would be this period when like the big like mosquitoes and like the Dobson flies or whatever is up there would come down and like you'd get hit and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as that period was over, it was peace the entire night. It was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of hammock camping.
Yeah, I was really amazed at how comfortable that was. I mean, you don't roll and toss and turn. You kind of sit in your cocoon all night, and I felt like it was just, it was really easy to get a cozy night's sleep. And the only problem was, Ethan, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I read about it in our journal, is that, middle of night one in the hammock camp, I mean, Ethan falls out of his hammock, right? And is
Oh,
like
wow.
having this nightmare that spiders are attacking him. We're back to the spider fear again, It's like he's like, dude, there's spiders all over me, And I'm like, so I've got to get out of my camp, out of my little cocoon, and it's pitch black, and I can't find my flashlight, and I'm like falling all over as well, trying to get over to him without waking up everyone, and over to him, and like there's no spiders anywhere, obviously, right? It's just all this dream. But so aside from that
I was whacking at everything. I was slapping around, just trying to kill the spiders that were inside of my hammock.
Yeah. I was like, this has to be like the delusions of a man who's just walked way too many miles and is partly dehydrated, and but it was a blast,
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned journals. So before we got started here, you said that you guys each took a journal up there and you wrote down kind of some notes from the day.
Yeah. I made Ethan do it. He didn't want to do it at first. But aren't you glad you did?
Yeah,
I am. It's very cool to look back and see what you were thinking or like how you felt at that moment. It's very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did the exact same thing the first time that I went. I bought a journal and I took it out there, and every night after I set up camp, I'd lay up for a little bit and I just documented what I did that day, how many miles from what section of the trail, like from what gap to what gap, about how many miles it was, and then just thoughts from the day. And it's fun to go back and read. It's really neat to see where your mind was at when you're like utterly exhausted and your legs and your feet are killing you and you're soaked with sweat and just laying there nasty trying to get some sleep. But it's a really cool thing, and I can't wait to like show that to my kids when they get a little bigger.
Yeah, without a doubt, I mean, just things like that you forget. It was only like 6 months ago for us, but I reminded myself reading it through of some of the names I ran into on the trail. I mean, everyone's got their trail name, right? So we ran into Snook. Snook, if you ever hear this, we're here in Florida, sending our regards. And Snook has hiked this trail multiple times, and we ran into this family that we nicknamed Military Dad. He and his family were going on a 10-day hike. And day one, I mean, they were not looking happy, So you wonder if they finished, their 10-day hike or not, But these are things that I totally forgot about, names I forgot about, and reread them now. And I'm like, yeah, those were great people, and I wonder how they're doing, and I need to look them up,
The military family. It was like a 10-year-old boy and like maybe a 9-year-old daughter. And he was taking them on 10-day hikes where he planned to hike like a ton. And they were exhausted. Like, we were talking to Snook about that, and she had said she had talked to them. And the kids did not want to go on this trip. And they were not enjoying it. It did not. they had been completely forced onto this.
Did you guys have trail names? Sorry, do you guys have trail names?
Not really. One of our friends has a trail name, I know, but we don't really have any trail names.
He gave us a trail name after we were done, but
he did.
We haven't gone back out yet to test the trail names. Do you remember what yours was, Ethan?
I got you.
I don't.
I don't remember what mine was. I think mine was like one of the Transformers, if I'm not mistaken. It was. So yeah, we got them, but we'll have to test those before we're ready to release our trail names. Make sure they're actually.
Gotcha, gotcha.
You have a trail name, Tim?
I do, I do. I've actually, I've had several. So the first time I went, Kale Andrews, he told me kind of about the process. I really didn't know anything about it, but he kind of compared it to like an Xbox avatar name or something like that. Just a little name to kind of get to know other people out there. It's just something fun to do. And so the first time that I went, I didn't really do anything with that. And me and John went. We didn't come up with names for each other. But the second time that I went, me and Brad O'Hearn went, and we kind of made that a point to name each other on the way up there. And he named me Dreamweaver because I'm a big dreamer, and he wanted me to sing the song occasionally throughout the trip there. Unfortunately, that name didn't stick. I'm sorry, but I'm not going by Dreamweaver. So this past this, this past year, I renamed myself Mitty. So there's got some value to that name. There's a movie that I really like called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and I relate a lot to that character. There's some motivating things in that story that really touch home with me. So I adopted that name this year, so that's kind of what I'm going with moving forward. So
Oh, that's so cool. It's like you don't get a chance to name yourself, until you're on a trail, evidently, and that's where you
yeah,
can, or your people around you get to name you after, like, your character. So Snook, by the way, she was a Florida person who liked to fish, and that was why she was Snook. But
yeah,
That's where we fish to catch. And so that was her real name.
and so we
that's
got to go
really
out and
cool.
get trail names.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably a lot more enjoyable when you have other people give you a name. But it's one of those things. It's like when I was growing up, I didn't really have too many nicknames. Tim is a pretty short name anyway, so that people just call me by that. Or my middle initial is J, so I went by TJ for a little bit. But I never really got any kind of nickname like that growing up. So this whole trail name thing was cool, but like I imagine if I was out there for a long period of time and I was interacting with a lot of different people and some of the same folks day after day, I might get a name from them. But I figured, hey, let's get ahead of the game and get a cool one.
Smart move. Yeah.
Don't want
Yeah.
to get stuck with a bad name.
No, I know. Talking about
Yeah,
embarrassing. Real name is a bad name, right? Yeah, I loved meeting the people, people on the trail. I mean, everyone had a story, right? And the camp, the campgrounds. We were amazed that you could kind of like go off on the trail and you're totally alone for the 8 or so hours that you're hiking, and then you pull into a campsite, and there's a bunch of people there. You're like, how did they all get there? And a lot of them stop earlier or come in late, a little later after you, and there's just enough density there that you never really see anyone on the trail until the campsites, and then it's as social as you want it to be. We had one night where
right.
it was like, had to be like 20 or 30 people at this big campsite, and it was just so neat to see how they interacted and related, and the fun times folks were having, conversations we had were a lot and it's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. The times that I've gone have been in the parts of the year where it's not entirely crowded. Usually around the first part of the year in springtime, whenever everybody's kind of like got their New Year's resolutions, they're going to hike the Appalachian Trail. They're going to start in March. That's when you get like the giant crowds out there on the trails, and there's a lot of crowds in the different shelters along the way. But those folks kind of start to filter out throughout the year and fall off the trail and that kind of stuff. So going later in the year, you don't really see as many folks out on the trail, but you still see a good amount. It's a really well beaten path. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of people that attempt it and just do sections and even do day hikes on it. So it's a really vast array of people that you can come in contact with, and it's really cool.
Yeah. Tim, one of the things that kind of hit me the most on the trail, I'm sure you've had guests talk about this before, but was that plaque that was there at the base of Amalcoa, that, it was like that main Appalachian Trail plaque. And I was remembering as I was reading through my journal, the quote that was on that plaque. And do you remember it, Tim? Do you remember it started out by saying remote for detachment, narrow for chosen company, winding for leisure, lonely for contemplation. it beckons not merely north and south, but upward to the body, mind, and soul of men. And I thought, we started out this trail and we had our backpacks on and we were full of like energy and excitement. And that was the first, kind of the last bit of humanity that we saw. We read that quote and it was like, I thought that was really special because it kind of, as I hiked it and thought about it, I wrote it down. I was like, it's exactly what this is. And it was such a meaningful perspective to me that, what I was doing here was, was about like a real personal spiritual enrichment. And there's something about that trail, the way it kind of captures you and leads you along, challenges your body, kind of elates your mind, and really does beckon you upward, right? In addition to it
Yeah.
being like an altitude thing, I feel like all the time on that trail, my mind was called out of my body and into like a higher place. And it was unlike any other physical activity that I've done, feeling like that all the time on trail.
Yeah, I didn't remember that quote specifically, but I do remember having a unique experience there at that point. Um, and I wrote about that, just the folks that you meet there. Sometimes that's where they start their journey. Sometimes that's where they end it, depending on which way they're going, north or south. And it's a hallowed place for a lot of people because the trail it's life-changing for a lot of folks. It's not, some people just go for fun. Other people go for, because they're lost and they're trying to find themselves and find a new identity. So that's why the whole trail name thing kind of comes into play as a really cool way to do that. And then other folks, get out there not really expecting to discover, what they do. And so it's just, it's such a cool and like revolving door of gift giving, whenever you go and experience that, because no matter what you overcome, you can have a really hard day and learn stuff. You can have a really easy day and learn stuff, and you can just, soak it all up. It's such a neat experience, and it's really hard to put into words for people who haven't experienced that themselves. I mean, you can try, but you just got to do it. You got to get out there and do it.
Totally.
Yeah. So, how did you guys go about planning the trip? Did you kind of have a route in mind? Did you need to like a certain goal for how many miles you wanted to do each day, or are you just kind of like spitballing?
Hey, Ethan, you want to tell them about our mentor for the trip? And you remember
Yeah.
his name?
Marty.
Yeah, Broadwell. Shout out to Marty Broadwell.
So he mentored us. He told us a lot about the weight and stuff, how important that was. He told us a bit about the trail we were taking, and he told us a lot about like the gear we need and stuff. That he was kind of our like planning advisor. He told us what we needed to know, and he helped us get started. He helped a lot.
Definitely. And he didn't like teach us too much about or tell us too much about the route. We knew that we had 3 days, and we knew that, we were going to be able to get up there about midday, maybe 2 o'clock on day one. And so we needed to just kind of get as far as we could in that 3 day period. And we were going to park our car, one of the cars of the couples that went, we were going to park on the northmost spot so that we had a way to get back to our car at Amakaloa. And so we just kind of like plotted a route that we felt like was challenging enough that we could do, and just kind of did it. I mean, now thinking back on it, I'm like, we were kind of unprepared and not super strategic. I mean, I could have been more researched about how many miles I could cover with this group, and exactly where we would work to camp. And I'm sure if I had like done a little bit more research, I could have figured that out. But I didn't feel like I was being over aggressive when we were initially setting our daily mileage. And that seemed to me to be totally doable. But we really needed to rest longer than we thought we would. So like the well-made plans of mice and men, right? You get started and all of a sudden you're hours behind and you've got nightfall coming ahead. So it's not like you can keep walking and just push through and get there, because, with almost no light on the trails, it's really dangerous to do that. Plus there's a limited amounts of water. So what we found on the road was that, we saw on our maps there was water here, and we read the blogs and they're like, yeah, here's roughly where it is and pretty easy to find. But then we'd get going and we'd miss it. And all of a sudden the water stop is gone. And we didn't pack a ton of reserve water because in this first length of the trail, there's supposed to be tons of water spots. But, if you miss a water spot and then you're like, you take too long at rest and now nightfall is approaching, all your plans are ruined, and you've got to really modify. So fortunately, nothing too bad happened to us, but we definitely didn't keep by any kind of plan, not nearly as close to the plan that we set for ourselves.
Yeah, I was thinking back to when we were talking about this, and if I remember right, I mean, we were like probably days apart from like being on the trail at the same time whenever me and Brad went and when you and Ethan went. And at that point in time, a lot of the water sources were kind of dry. So like, going up that approach trail, we were expecting to get a good water source right there at the shelter before Springer. And when we got there, it was like a trickle, so that's a game changer whenever you're like huffing and puffing and you're worn out, you're dehydrated and you need some water and it's not there. So yeah, planning is it's a lot more. I'm preaching to the choir here because I've had terrible experiences because I don't plan very well whenever I take my trips. So
yeah, and there's like total like rookie mistakes. Like I had this electrolyte powder and I was like, yeah, I'll put a sachet of electrolyte powder in my water bottle. And so I did, but I dumped the whole thing in and I like ruined my water. Like it was like so salty you could barely drink it. I mean, it wouldn't have killed me, but it was just almost unpalatable. And so in addition to like having limited water and not having water, then I ruined a whole one of my water bottles too. And so day one, those kind of things, just like you feel like, oh, I'm such a bonehead. But they're just like rookie mistakes that you make out on the trail. Fortunately, you've got buddies with water and, you can survive a day without water. So, but we did that. We got to the campsite that night and we were kind of dehydrated. We had not nearly enough water for all of us to drink and cook, but we knew Springer was up ahead. So we thought we'll just spend the night here and then we'll have like an hour and a half hike to Springer in the morning. We'll have plenty of water there. And of course we did. But then of course we were foolish and we were like, parasites, what parasites? We're just going to drink unpurified water. We're so thirsty. They won't get us, right? So we chug water.
Yeah.
I dodged the bullet, but Ethan was not so lucky.
Yeah, that can be dangerous, man. You just get a little stomach bug.
What'd you get, buddy? Tell them what you
I got Giardia. It was not exactly a pleasant experience.
Oh man, that's no good. No bueno.
Lasted for 6 weeks or so?
Yeah, 6 weeks. Maybe a little more, but it's just like constant stomach aches and
Yeah.
not fun.
Well, I'm gonna do a little shameless plug here for a product that I really like a lot. And it's the Sawyer Squeeze. It's a little mini filter that you can screw on the top of a water bottle. Highly recommend it. I mean, you can pretty much fill up like any kind of water bottle, and it screws right on top, and you drink right through it. And so it's not a whole lot of effort to go through it. So anybody who's listening that might be planning their hike, don't make that mistake. Make sure you get a water filter. It's definitely worth it. Ethan can tell you.
Yeah, you should ask him about that. Well, so iodine tablets is what we were going to go with for our purification option. It would have been fine if we had just been patient, but we weren't patient and we were super cocky and we were like, it won't get us,
We were all just so thirsty, and 30 minutes was like
didn't want to wait
to go without water because what we felt was we're gonna go fill up our water bottles. It's not we don't really want to just sit here for 30 minutes while our water bottles purify. And we'll be on the trail, and then it'll be time, and we'll all just start like chugging our water. And so, because I must have drunk like a bottle full of water just sitting there. And so,
yeah,
definitely probably better to go with one of those squeeze filters.
Yeah, instant water.
So one of the main reasons I wanted to bring you guys on the show is because I really think that this father-son aspect of the trip is really cool. It's something that I aspire to do with my boys when they get a little bit bigger. And I wanted to kind of get both of your perspectives on like how that was meaningful to you guys, what you took away from it, and I really the what I want to make lasting from this episode is just to folks who have some children that they may not have a great relationship with, or they're having trouble connecting with. What are some of the benefits that can come from taking a trip like this with a mom and dad, or son or daughter?
So it definitely helps bonding. Like having I can say for myself that me and my friend that went with us, we both had a harder time on the first day just because we were sore. I mean, we're still younger and it's very draining and we were having a hard time. And it's nice to have someone to like rely on to help you through this stuff. It's definitely a good bonding thing.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I thought so. The goal was to try and like, you don't want to manufacture stuff. I mean, here's the I don't want anything fake and smarmy in my life, right? Especially as it relates to kind of having a good relationship with someone like my son. I want authentic conversational experiences. I want like time that will lead itself to like naturally, discussing life and just, things, right? And so the Appalachian Trail gave us all the time we needed and all the solitude we needed for things just to naturally evolve in our relationship. The dependencies that Ethan talked about, we're on a trail and he needs us to slow down. We got to stop and rest. And, I've got a choice at that moment. I can like, come down hard and crack the whip and we need to get going, or we can modify our plans and we can I can remember what it was like to be 12 and, and how I definitely wasn't doing what he was doing in that moment. Right. And so I can build respect for, what he's doing and what he's going through, even if he's got to take a break more often than I do at this point. So that became very obvious to me, that really growing respect for him and for what he's putting himself through in the interest of self-improvement. And then of course, the opportunities just come, right? Out, you're walking and something strikes you. And that's when you can just, ask the question or throw out the observation or relate something that you're doing right now to something that's really significant to you as a man, or where you want to be spiritually. And those opportunities were everywhere on the trail. You just had to take them. I mean, you could walk on silently because the trail allows you to do that, or you can, have the courage to ask the question or to share the thing about yourself that you feel like you're thinking in that moment. And I try to do more of that. It was definitely easier to do more of that when Ethan and I were maybe walking on ahead or a little bit of ways from our other traveling companions. But when we did that and we had those kinds of conversations, it's talked about how God even speaks to you through his revelation in nature, and how he's just opening up what you feel like are secrets that he doesn't share with people readily unless you're in places like that. You can talk about those things and share your experience with those things. And you can realize the kind of the growing spiritual creature that your son is, and that even you are in that moment. And those opportunities were everywhere. I thought they were super rich for me. And I came off that trail respecting Ethan as a man, even though he was like 13, right? Maybe like the man he's becoming and the man I absolutely know he will be because of how he handled that experience. And I was thrilled with that opportunity. It was everything that I wanted for, a 3-day experience with my kid.
That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. And I definitely aspire to that too. That's something I look forward to doing with all 3 of my boys and my daughter too, because she's an outdoor girl. So it'll be really cool when we can all kind of take those trips together. I like what you were talking about, these moments that present themselves. So my last episode, I talked a little bit about my New Year's resolution and kind of what my goal this year is going to be. And that's going to be capturing what I'm calling seizable moments. So, you have these different moments that are teachable, where you can capitalize on an event or something going on where you can learn from it or teach someone from it. But what I was looking at was this idea of a seizable moment where just you have an opportunity to make a choice to connect with someone or to turn the other way. And so my goal this year is to capture those seizable moments and really connect with my children, with my wife, with my brothers and sisters in Christ, and also friends and family, just anybody who I come in contact with that I see an opportunity to learn something from them or to impact them. I want to seize that moment. And so I love what you just said, because it totally encapsulates what my goal is this year. So really, really cool. I'm jealous. I think that that this is something you guys are going to cherish for a lifetime for sure, and I can't wait to experience it myself.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was. These kind of moments as you describe them, I really like that. They take a lot of work. I mean, they're not easy. The preparation, the physical, expenditure, effort that you got to put into it. I mean, if you're going to just be kind of lazing through life, I think that what I've discovered is that you don't have those moments, right? Because I'm just sitting in front of the TV like I am every night, and then when you're there, it's just really harder to kind of, it's kind of harder to put yourself in the position where you can relate at a different level. And so, that's definitely what I noticed is how much work it is. And it was a ton of work and a ton of effort. And we have a lot of physical injuries still to show from that, but man, was it worth it? Just totally worth it.
Yeah, no, that's really, really cool. And I think that we've kind of expanded a little bit on a lot of the benefits that come from doing things outdoors, especially with your kids and, even by yourself. There's so many positive things that come from just being outside and in nature, in the quiet, away from the noise. And, I'm saying noise, I like natural noise more than people noise, but it's definitely something that I think everybody needs to do, and we need to make time for that for sure. So, do you have anything any kind of tips that you want to add for maybe some kids your age, Ethan or Peter, anybody who you might come in contact with that might be wanting to take on something like this? Any kind of rookie mistakes you made that you want to give them a pointer on?
I'd say probably just make sure you have your gear on the right way. Like, make sure that everything is comfortable before you start, or you're going to finish with everything like much, much more uncomfortable. And it's not fun to go through.
That's a great point, Ethan. Everything gets heavier when you're on the trip. Nothing gets lighter. You think you're going to eat a bunch of stuff and it's just going to get lighter. And I don't know, for whatever reason, that doesn't work that way, right? Because you find some stone on the way that you want to bring home with you, and now it's heavier than all your gear. But yeah, I mean, whatever you can do to minimize your gear, go at a time of the year where the weather, the change and climate's not going to be so vast that you need to have like a ton of different kinds of survival gear. But we way overpacked. And we were probably 5 pounds heavier than we should have been, which sounds like nothing, but a 25-pound backpack just feels so heavy when you're on the trail. And so you've got to do everything you can to get that weight down. I think that's a critical, mistake that we made. And our mentor told us that. He said, lose weight as much as you can, get as much weight out of your backpack. I go for the tiniest, the lightest. And we were like, it's like 1 extra pound. What is it? How bad could that actually be? It's horrible. So whatever you can do to make it lighter.
Yeah. Well, one thing real quick, when you're talking about the water situation up there, the last time that I took a trip up there, I got in that situation where I was a little dehydrated. We got to a point where we had a really strong water source, and I capitalized on that. I had 3 different containers that were several different sizes, little pouches, and I filled up all of them because I was like, man, I am not running out of water again on an ascent. Little did I know that was going to add like 10 pounds or 15 pounds to my pack. So, we go from a low point up a steep ascent, and I had to shed it. I could not carry it because it was too heavy, so I ended up dumping it out anyway. So it's one of those things. Absolutely, weight's a big thing. I'm curious, how in the world did you get your pack to 25 pounds first time ever going? Because if that's the legit number, that's really impressive.
Do you think that's light?
Yes. Yeah, my first pack was 60 pounds.
Oh, what? That's extraordinary. Okay, that's a lot of weight. I don't feel quite as bad.
No, y'all did fantastic.
Yeah, well, we were hiking together, so he could carry some stuff that we were going to need, and we were going to cook together, and so we shared some equipment. That was our way of.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, but man, I mean, we got those cheap Walmart bags. We're like, these will be fine, right? Who needs the light gear? And we crossed a couple of really seasoned trail guys, and they were like, yeah, I can tell as you guys are walking up here that your bags are way too heavy. You're never gonna make where you're going because you guys are just like novices out here. We're like, yeah. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really I really appreciate you guys taking the time tonight to come on the show and talk a little bit with me. I'm really excited for you guys. And when's your next hike gonna be?
Gotta plan it.
Yeah, we need to plan it.
Yeah, we don't know, but now that we've had this talk, we're like, let's just plan it. Let's make it happen soon.
Yeah.
Great memories.
Yeah, you got to do it. I gotta get my next one planned as well. But I really want to thank you guys for taking time to come on. This was a great discussion. I think it's going to be a really good episode for everyone to check out. And anyway, thanks again, guys. Peter, Ethan, I appreciate the time.
Hey, you're welcome. We'll sign off. Take care.
All right, take care, guys. Thanks. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast app, be sure to hit that subscribe button and leave me a nice review there. I greatly appreciate that. If you're watching this on YouTube, also hit that subscribe button and turn on those alerts. Drop me a comment and let me know what you think of the show. Looking for us on social media, you can find us at The Trail Connection on Instagram and Facebook. We share lots of cool photos of nature and some nice deep thoughts about those photos. And be sure to give us a follow, give us a like. Check out what we got going on a daily basis. So, thanks for tuning in, everybody. My name is Tim Garland, a.k.a. Mitty, and you're listening to the Trail Connection Podcast.